Freedom Rooted in Revelation, The Testament to Real Evolution by Alexander Green Jr. Read for you by Alexander Green Jr. Introduction. The truth is in plain sight. It's time to atone and open our spiritual eye. The faithful must awaken so that devastation, suffering, and pain will subside. When you realize that God's divine revelation is always available, are aware of your spiritual identity, and know without a doubt that God lives, you will love your neighbor and escape the hell and torment that is the human life experience. For ages, individuals have questioned God, and now many have begun to question identity itself. This book will answer these questions. The philosophy of an era influences the collective thought system of individuals that live in the period. Philosophical thought originates in the study of nature's relationship to God. I once heard that the most general philosophical question during medieval times was, can God create a rock so heavy, even God couldn't lift it? I don't know if there was ever an agreed upon answer. Still, I do know that individuals have been questioning reality, immortality, and the universality of all things for a long time. Evaluating our relationship to the universe and nature influences civility and compromise amongst individuals and nations. Philosophy, theology, art, and alchemy have stimulated religious movements and collective awakenings for centuries. The art and philosophy of a period have often correlated. For instance, philosophers wrote about God's love during the age of Romanticism. The artists painted nature, and musicians sang about romance. In this era, it seems the overarching philosophical question has become, does God exist? The abstract nature of modern art and the dominance of hostile or wordless music indicate a culture that does not see a reflection of itself or God in the world. As our collective agreement of scientific theory expounds, the belief in a higher purpose or a reason to live for something greater than ourselves has decreased. For many, the reality of evolution removes the possibility of divine creation. For others, the acceptance of religious dogma eliminates discussions around natural law. However, faith and scientific theory share a common ideology. Both make conclusions based on limited information. Believers use life experiences as evidence of God's existence, while the scientific-minded use logic as evidence against it. Since neither can fully prove or disprove if God is real, faith and reason continue to divide. Still, many historical figures claim to have had a personal relationship with a universal being. Jesus, Albert Einstein, Buddha, Muhammad, and David were from different eras and environments, but all claim to have had an intimate relationship with God. They spoke of personal communication with universal consciousness, the divine architect and sole creator of the universe. How could they have connected to God? How could they have interacted with God? Is it possible to know God exists without a doubt? Should the foundation of religious study be about faith in the unseen and outdated text? Or is there a physiological system to connect to the Almighty Creator? Can anyone have a personal relationship with God? And is this what prophets were trying to teach us? These are the questions I will answer in this book. There is a system. I know God exists without a doubt, and I have a personal relationship with her. I will teach you how to recreate one of your own through atonement. I will reference Christianity mostly because it is the dominant religion of my life experience, but the truth is transferable throughout culture, time, and space. Like all individuals, the church must awaken to the necessity of identifying as spiritual beings because it will play an instrumental role in our survival and evolution through synchronized affirmation, prayer, and denial. Although the church unknowingly rejects God's gift of divine spiritual power by praying to something outside itself, I am still in awe of the faith of Christ followers. The faith is blind because it's only through secondhand knowledge of God's existence or belief without truth. When believers know that God is real without a doubt, they will help change the world. We are in the last days, and all must seek atonement, divine intuition, inspiration, and guidance to manifest destiny. I began this book by attempting to shake or challenge your faith and logic so that hopefully I can convince you that it is better to communicate with God directly rather than relying on an individual, dogmatic tradition, or reason. This series of questions serves to open you up to new ideas, but the book will not address Christianity or science negatively at all after the introduction. I believe Yeshua was a prophet. I believe in science. However, I witness God's revelation and know that you must reject tradition to embrace truth. My questions are as follows. Question 1. Most Christians pray in the name of Jesus, but the letter J is only a few centuries old. There are different trains of thought about what the actual name of Christ was, but we can be sure that Jesus was not it based on the age of the letter alone. Does it matter that you are praying in the name of the man, but are not using his actual name? Question 2. The name Jesus was created during the Roman Empire with the merger of church and state. The name derives from the Israelite god Yahweh and the Greek god Zeus. YH was the abbreviation used for Yahweh, whose name could not be spoken by the Hebrews at the time. YH plus Zeus equals Jesus. To this day, the Spanish pronunciation of Jesus is Jesus. Does it matter that Hebrews would not speak the name of God, but now Christians pray in the name of Zeus? Question 3. It was common in 0 BC AD, or the age of Christ, for religious figures such as Christ that believed God inspired them to have scribes. A scribe is a man that would follow him around and write down everything he did and said. Yeshua chose to have disciples or students to teach individuals to be like him and worship God rather than worship him. The Bible states that Yeshua said, "Men will do even greater works than I have done." If Yeshua believed that all men could do great things, did he have students because he understood something about the nature of all individuals rather than his unique divinity? Question 4. The Christian Old Testament comes from the Jewish Torah. Christianity came from Judaism. Many Jews believe the Old Testament stories are allegorical or fictional, even though many churches teach them as fact. There was never a man in the belly of a whale for 3 days and 3 nights, and the earth doesn't have to be a few thousand years old in the Jewish Torah that predates the Christian Old Testament. Therefore, dinosaurs can exist, evolution can be real, and science does not have to disprove God's existence. Is the systemic rejection of scientific thought in Christianity causing the faith to lose followers or limiting your ability to accept your religion fully? Question 5. Many of the New Testament books were letters written to churches in cities such as Corinthians or Corinth. Early Christians wrote these letters in code because of persecution for practicing the original Gnostic religion. They disguised messages, so if guards found the letters, they wouldn't know what they were referring to. Currently, many Christians read from the New Testament without mentioning or knowing many biblical books were written in code. How can you read the New Testament literally today if it was written in code at conception? One could write a book about the discrepancies, inconsistencies, and issues with the Bible's authenticity. However, I assure you this book will not focus on trying to disprove or discredit the Bible at all. After all, God will reunite with us through infinite forms of worship, since she is everything that has ever been. I ask these questions because I hope curious Christians ask them as well. I hope individuals that already have a strong faith in God's omnipotence begin to accept the gifts of divinity and power while reading this book. Humanity is on a journey to its spiritual awakening, and God has been our guide throughout time. However, in these last days, we must let go of the superstitions that hinder our spiritual nature to change our lives and the world faster. The atheist, agnostic, or scientific minded will find this book informational as well. However, I suspect that a person who leans to science for their understanding of the universe will probably question small indicators of God's existence for far longer than current believers. There is a saying, signs and symbols are for the conscious mind. The more skeptical you are naturally or through nurture, the harder it will be to accept small synchronicities as indicators of evidence of universal consciousness or proof of the universal mind. However, skepticism could be an advantage if you're inquisitive and dig deeper faster, even if just to prove the information is false. If you embark on a spiritual journey, you will inevitably uncover absolute knowledge and will find the truth, regardless of your intentions. After all, in this book, I am not trying to convince you that you should entertain faith for self-help or prosperity, but evolution itself. Besides, I will not attempt to inspire you to believe anything without concrete proof. My purpose is to provide a pathway so that you can find God and know her personally. We are in a time when science proves God's existence with breakthroughs in particle physics, quantum mechanics, and the theory of relativity. We are at the dawn of a new age. The particle accelerator experiment proves that a creator or God particle is influencing all matter. We have learned that as objects draw to black holes, they slow down, and before entering, they sit almost completely still at the edge. So not only is time relative within our universe, but we can be sure that there is another place, within the black hole, that is timeless. The question then becomes, if God is real and good, why are our life experiences so bad? I am no scientist nor physicist, but for the sake of balance, I will attempt to ask questions to challenge the understanding of individuals that lean towards theories such as the Big Bang, evolution without God, or the scientific theory for their understanding of creationism. My questions are as follows. Question 1. Suppose the universe manifested at a central point and is expanding in all directions with evolution as the master builder. Shouldn't younger galaxies at the outer edges of the universe be better, different, or more evolved than older galaxies closer to the Big Bang? Question 2. The fact that universal laws are constant, identical, and unchanging throughout time and space shows that evolution has always had an anchor or guidepost. Does the existence of universal law prove that evolution is not the fundamental basis for creation, since law governs it? Question 3. Since we recognize that physical laws operate differently as objects approach and enter black holes, is it safe to presume that universal laws are only subject to what exists outside of black holes? If so, is it safe to assume that universal law began with the universe itself? Furthermore, is it okay to assume that what's within the black hole is older than the universe since black holes act upon it? Question 4. Since jellyfish and Venus flytraps don't have brains, but contain obvious self awareness, does that prove that consciousness is not a function of the brain and is separate from it? Since flowers adjust their location for sunlight, does that prove that they also have a degree of consciousness? Question 5. Is it safe to assume that consciousness operates like all other things in the known universe and can trace back to a singular source? If so, is that source not God? Hopefully, these questions are just food for thought. Challenge your beliefs and create space for new ideas and the thought system introduced within this book. Individuals have discussed the origin of creation since the beginning of communication. And I am not naive enough to believe that these questions will change your beliefs or heart. However, a spiritual being once told me that you could not pour new ideas into a full cup. So I hope this introduction may have given you a larger one. By the end of this book, I hope you see the value in keeping the grail empty for eternity.